you ever worked a night shift? That eerie silence, the shadows stretching long in the dim light, the feeling that the world outside is asleep while you're wide awake. It can be peaceful, even beautiful in its own way. But what happens when that peace is shattered? When the quiet darkness becomes a canvas for something truly terrifying? Tonight, we delve into a night shift horror story that will chill you to the bone. It's a story that starts with a simple towel request and spirals into a nightmare chase through quiet streets. A story that reminds us that sometimes the real monsters aren't under the bed, but walking right up to your front desk. Now, if you're ready to be spooked, and if you're enjoying these kinds of stories, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what keeps you up at night. And stick around, because this story, it's just the beginning. My name is Alex, and for a stretch of time, I worked the night audit shift at a small bed and breakfast on the outskirts of Oakhaven. Oakhaven, it was a quaint little town, usually quiet, almost sleepy. But a few months before I started, a hurricane had ripped through, tearing apart homes and lives. The storm surge had swallowed whole neighborhoods, leaving behind a trail of debris and displaced families. The Silver Birch Inn, where I worked, became a temporary haven for some of those who lost everything. The inn itself wasn't fancy. Standard rooms, floral wallpaper that was probably older than me, and a breakfast spread that was, well, let's just say basic is a kind word. Wet scrambled eggs, those rubbery pre-cooked sausages, and a sad assortment of cereals. But it was clean, it was dry, and for a while after the hurricane, it was bustling. Insurance adjusters, construction crews, and families waiting for repairs, they all filled the rooms. It was chaotic, but it was busy. And then, as the months passed, the chaos subsided. The insurance claims were processed, the construction moved on, and people started to find more permanent solutions. The Silver Birch Inn, once overflowing, became eerily quiet. Quieter, I think, than it had ever been, even before the storm. My shift was nights, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. Not glamorous, but it was a job, and frankly, I needed the solitude. The daytime hustle and bustle of the world felt too loud, too much. The quiet of the night, the stillness, it was a balm to my frayed nerves. After 2 a.m., a day auditor, a cheerful older woman named Martha, would arrive and take over until 10 or 11 a.m. Each night, I'd check the occupancy report. 9 rooms, sometimes less. 9 rooms in a 2-story building that could house 50. It felt vast and empty, like a ghost ship adrift in the dark hours. Sometimes, the entire night would pass without a single soul stirring. No check-ins, no calls, just the hum of the refrigerator in the back break room and the soft glow of the security monitors. The break room, that was my sanctuary. Tucked away behind the front desk, it was a small, windowless space with a tired coffee machine that perpetually smelled of burnt grounds, a mini fridge humming to itself, a worn table, and a couple of those lumpy, full leather sofas that felt like they were actively rejecting human contact. The employee bathroom was back there too. Most nights, that break room was where I spent my time, nursing lukewarm coffee and scrolling through my phone, the silence punctuated only by the occasional creak of the old building settling. There was a bell on the front desk, a small, silver thing that always seemed too loud when it finally rang, shattering the quiet. That bell was my only connection to the guests, my only indication that I wasn't, in fact, the last person on Earth. One night, it was particularly slow, even for a slow night. Around 11 p.m., maybe midnight, I was in the break room, half-heartedly watching some late-night show on my phone, when I heard it. Not the bell. A voice, deep, echoing in the lobby. "Hello," it called out, the sound reverberating through the empty space. "Hello? Is anyone there?" My heart gave a little jump. Guests. Finally, I stood up, smoothed down my uniform shirt, and walked through the door that led from the break room to behind the front desk. The lobby stretched out before me, dimly lit by the soft glow of recessed lights. And there he was, a man, standing on the other side of the glass barrier. We had a thick pane of security glass separating the front desk from the lobby, a holdover from a less tranquil time, I guessed. There was a narrow opening underneath, maybe 10 inches high, to pass paperwork and keys through. He stood there, framed by the glass, his face slightly distorted by the thickness of it. "Can I help you, sir?" I asked, my voice sounding louder than I intended in the stillness. He looked at me, his gaze lingering for a moment too long. "Towels," he said, his voice gravelly, deeper than I'd expected. "I need more towels." "Of course," I said, relieved it was something so simple. "Room number?" He gave me a number, something in the 200s. I didn't recognize it immediately, but I didn't think much of it. Guests sometimes got confused. I grabbed a stack of fresh towels from the shelf behind the desk, 2 bath towels and a couple of hand towels, just to be generous. I walked back to the glass and slid them under the opening towards him. He snatched them. Not just took them, but snatched them, his hand gripping them tightly, almost aggressively. As he pulled them through, his eyes met mine again. And it was then that I saw it. Something off. His eyes were too wide, too intense. And there was a flicker in them, something cold and unsettling. He shot me this look, a quick, sharp glance that felt like a physical touch, before turning abruptly and heading towards the hallway that led to the rooms. I stood there for a moment, a shiver tracing down my spine despite myself. Towels. It was just towels. But something about that encounter, it left me feeling uneasy. Shaking it off, I walked back to the rolling chair behind the desk and settled in, turning my attention to the security monitors. There were maybe a dozen cameras positioned around the property, the parking lot, the entrances, the hallways. Old habits die hard. Even when it was slow, I kept an eye on the monitors, a silent, watchful presence. And that's when I watched him. On the camera feed, I saw him walk down the hallway. He wasn't just walking. He was meandering. His head swiveled back and forth, his gaze darting into doorways, lingering on room numbers. He looked lost, or maybe searching for something. And then he stopped, right in front of one of the guest room doors. He lifted the towels to his face, burying his nose in them, rubbing them against his cheeks, almost caressing them. "What in the world?" I murmured out loud, my unease turning into a prickle of something sharper, something closer to alarm. It was just weird, disturbingly weird. Then he got into the elevator, the old Otis groaning softly as it ascended. I watched the elevator indicator light climb to the 2nd floor, then stop. He was up there now, alone. I hesitated. Should I call Martha? No, I was being ridiculous. A guest needed towels and was acting a little strange. That was it. People were weird. Night shifts did that to you, made you jumpy. I pushed the thought away and tried to distract myself with my phone again, but my eyes kept drifting back to the monitors. Minutes ticked by. 10 minutes, maybe 15. The silence in the lobby pressed in on me again, heavier now, laced with a nervous anticipation I couldn't quite explain. Then, it happened again. The voice, booming out of the empty lobby. Closer this time. "Hello," it called out, louder, more insistent. "My key card is broken." I sighed, pushing myself up from the chair. Key cards. Always something. I walked back out to the front desk, a practiced customer service smile plastered on my face. He was there again, on the other side of the glass. "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral, professional. He leaned closer to the glass, his face now inches away. "My key card," he repeated, his voice louder, almost aggressive. "It's broken. I can't get into my room." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, keeping my smile in place, though it felt brittle now. "What's your room number, sir?" He hesitated for a split second, then rattled off a number. 2. See something. "I don't know." 2C something. 2C something. My smile faltered. Our hotel rooms didn't have letters. They were all numbered, sequentially, from 101 to 250. No letters, no suites, just standard rooms. A cold dread started to creep up my spine. Something was very wrong. "Sir," I said slowly, carefully, keeping my voice calm. "Our rooms, they don't have letters. Are you sure you're staying here? Perhaps you have the wrong hotel?" His reaction, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't anger, not at first. It was something colder, something far more unsettling. He stopped talking. He just stared at me, his eyes fixed on mine, that same unnerving intensity in them. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached down and picked up the towels he'd dropped on the floor earlier. He held them in his hand, clenching them into a tight fist. And then he smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was wide, too wide, stretching his lips back in a grotesque parody of happiness. His eyes didn't crinkle at the corners. They remained wide, fixed, unblinking. And as he smiled, he started tilting his head, slowly, side to side, like a curious animal or something not quite human. He started to move closer to the glass, that horrific smile still plastered on his face, his head still tilting, his eyes locked on mine. He kept coming, closer and closer, until his face was practically pressed against the cold glass, his breath fogging the surface. I could see the pores on his skin, the slight tremor in his lips. He was inches away from me, separated only by the thick pane of glass. And then he spoke. His voice was low, a guttural whisper that seemed to vibrate the glass itself. "I'm going to kill you." The smile didn't waver. It remained fixed, a mask of horrifying glee. He said it again, louder this time, the words laced with a chilling delight. "I'm going to kill you." And again, each time louder, each time more forceful, the smile widening, his eyes burning into mine. "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." By the last repetition, it was a scream, a raw, animalistic shriek that echoed through the empty lobby, bouncing off the silent walls. Terror, raw and primal, exploded in my chest. I screamed back, "I'm calling the police." My voice was thin, reedy, barely audible over his shrieks, but I had to do something, anything. I grabbed the phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. I held the phone up, showing him the screen as I punched in the numbers. "Police. I'm calling the police." He watched me, that grotesque smile still etched on his face, his eyes glinting with something amusement. He started to mock me, mimicking my words in a high-pitched, childish voice. "Calling the police. Calling the police." He was laughing now, a low, deranged chuckle that was far more terrifying than his screams. As the dispatcher answered, her voice calm and professional, I spoke, my voice trembling, trying to keep it loud, clear. 911, I need help. There's a man here at the Silver Birch Inn. He's threatening me. He said he's going to kill me. He's right here, in front of me, yelling." The man, still smiling, still chuckling, turned and started to walk away. Slowly, deliberately. He wasn't running. He wasn't panicking. He was just leaving, taking his time, like he was enjoying the show. "Dispatcher," I said, my voice rising in panic. "He's leaving. He's walking towards the door. He's going out the door." I watched him on the security monitor as he walked out of the lobby, disappearing into the night. The dispatcher's voice, calm and reassuring, filled my ear. "Ma'am, is he gone now? Is the suspect no longer in your immediate vicinity?" "Yes," I said, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "Yes, he's gone. He's out of sight. Do you still want an officer to come to your location?" she asked, her voice patient. I hesitated. He was gone. He was out there, in the dark. But he was gone from the hotel. Was it over? Was it safe now? The thought of waiting here, alone, for the police to arrive, it felt unbearable. But the thought of him coming back. "No," I said finally, my voice barely a whisper. "No, it's all right. He's gone." "Are you sure, ma'am?" she pressed gently. "We can still send an officer to check on you, just to be safe." "No," I repeated, a little stronger this time. "It's okay. Thank you. But no, it's all right." I hung up the phone, my hand still shaking. All right. Nothing felt all right. My heart was hammering in my chest, my legs felt like jelly, and my whole body was trembling. But he was gone, and I just wanted to be left alone. The next couple of hours of my shift crawled by, each minute stretching out into an eternity. The lobby, once just quiet, now felt charged, heavy with an unseen threat. I couldn't bring myself to go back to the break room. I stayed in the lobby, perched on the rolling chair, my eyes darting between the front door and the security monitors, every shadow seeming to writhe with menace. Around 2 a.m., blessedly, my relief arrived. Martha bustled in, her usual cheerful self, oblivious to the terror that had just unfolded. "Evening, Alex," she chirped, her smile bright. "Slow night." "You could say that," I managed, my voice still shaky. I didn't tell her what had happened. I couldn't. It felt too raw, too unreal. I just clocked out, grabbed my bag, and practically fled. Stepping out into the parking lot was like stepping into another world. It was cold, bitingly so, the air sharp and crisp. I instantly regretted not bringing my coat. I hunched my shoulders, pulling the hood of my thin jacket up over my head, shoving my hands deep into my pockets for warmth. As I walked towards my car, I heard it again. A voice from the parking lot. Not loud, not yelling, but there. A murmur just beyond the edge of hearing. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Where was it coming from? The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few scattered cars. Along the side of the hotel, bordering the parking lot, was a long, thick line of bushes, overgrown and shadowy, concealing the ground floor windows. The voice, it seemed to come from the bushes. A low, indistinct mutter. I couldn't make out words, but the tone, it was malevolent, threatening. I didn't wait to hear more. I didn't care what it was saying. Adrenaline surged through me again, cold and sharp. I started to walk faster, my pace quickly turning into a jog. Get to my car. Get out of here. Get home. Once I was out of the parking lot, I was on the main road, a short stretch of asphalt connecting the hotel to the residential streets. Usually, at this hour, the road was deserted. Tonight, it was tomb-like. No cars, no headlights, just the black expanse of road stretching out before me under the pale glow of the streetlights. After a minute, I turned left onto my street, a quiet residential lane lined with houses shrouded in darkness. Eventually, this street would lead to my block, to my house, to safety. Or so I hoped. It was dead silent out here. No traffic noise, no distant sirens, not even the rustling of leaves. Just the soft, rhythmic sound of my shoes hitting the pavement. And then another sound. Behind me. Footsteps. Someone else's shoes hitting the pavement. Closer now. Faster. The sound of someone running. Not a full-out sprint, but a quick, light run, almost on tiptoes, like someone trying to be quiet. My blood turned to ice. I knew in the pit of my stomach, in the frantic pounding of my heart, who it was. I whirled around, my heart leaping into my throat. The street behind me was empty. Dark houses on either side, pools of shadow under the streetlights. No one, nothing. But then a car, parked on the side of the road, just a few houses back. Dark, silent. And instinctively, I knew. He was there, hiding, behind the car. And then I heard it. A low chuckle, drifting on the cold night air. And then, that voice. Familiar. Horrifyingly familiar. "I'm going to kill you." It whispered, the words barely audible, yet sharp and clear in the stillness of the night. I didn't need to see him. I knew it was him. That voice. That chilling promise. It was burned into my memory. Panic seized me, a cold, suffocating wave. I looked around wildly, my mind racing, desperately searching for a way out. Outrun him. Impossible. Not in these work shoes, not in this state of terror. Fight back? Against him? I was small, unarmed, paralyzed by fear. My eyes landed on a house, a few doors down on the opposite side of the street. Upstairs, a light was on. Someone was awake. Someone was home. Hope flared, a tiny spark in the overwhelming darkness. Help. I needed help. I looked back at the car, and then I saw him. Peeking his eyes out from behind the car, just a sliver of his face visible in the shadows. He was inching around the car, slowly, deliberately, coming for me. He reached the hood, his face emerging from the darkness, then his upper body. And then I saw it again. That smile. Disgusting. Crazy. stretching across his face, mocking me. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think. I just ran. I bolted across the street, towards the house with the light on, screaming at the top of my lungs. Help me! Help me! Please help me! I pounded on the front door, ringing the doorbell again and again, hammering on the wood with my fists, desperate, frantic. Help! Somebody help me! I heard footsteps pounding behind me, closer now, gaining on me. And then a hand, rough, cold, clamping down on my neck, choking me, squeezing the air from my lungs. He was behind me. He had me, his hot breath on my ear, his voice a sibilant whisper laced with triumph. Die, he hissed. Die. Darkness started to on my vision. My lungs burned, my head swam, my legs buckled. This was it. This was how it ended. On a quiet residential street, in the cold darkness, at the hands of a madman. My life, it flashed before my eyes, a chaotic jumble of memories, faces, moments. And then light. Bright, sudden light, spilling out from the front door. The door flung open, and a figure filled the doorway, silhouetted against the warm glow of the house. A man, tall, broad-shouldered. Hey! The man roared, his voice booming, startlingly loud. What the hell do you think you're doing? The grip on my neck loosened, then released completely. I gasped, sucking in air, falling to the porch, collapsing onto the cold wooden planks. I didn't turn to look. I didn't see him run. I just heard the sound of footsteps pounding away, fading into the night. The man from the house was there, kneeling beside me, his voice filled with concern. Are you all right? Are you hurt? He helped me up, his hand firm and steady under my arm. He pulled me inside, into the warm, brightly lit hallway of his home. He gave me water, his wife appearing now, her face etched with worry. They sat me down in their living room, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and listened, their faces growing increasingly grim as I choked out the story, the words tumbling out in a rush of fear and relief. He called the police for me, his voice calm and authoritative as he explained what had happened. The police arrived quickly, sirens wailing briefly before cutting off as they pulled up to the house. They listened to my story again, their expressions serious. They took down all the details, promised to investigate, to find him. They went to the Silver Birch Inn, collected the CCTV footage from the security cameras, assured me they would do everything they could. Days later, they called me into the station. They'd found someone. Not him, not yet, but someone. They'd arranged a lineup. 5 men, standing in a row, all roughly the same height and build, similar features, similar dark hair. They asked me to look, to identify him, if I could. I stood in front of the one-way mirror, my heart pounding again, staring at the men behind the glass. They all looked similar, vaguely familiar, in a way that made my stomach clench. But was it him? The man with the smile? The voice? The eyes? I looked at each of them, scrutinizing their faces, searching for that chilling smile, that unnerving gaze. 5 minutes stretched into 10, then 15. The officers waited patiently, their silence adding to the pressure. And then, I shook my head. It's not them, I said, my voice barely audible. I don't recognize anyone. They pressed me gently, asked if I was sure, if the stress might be affecting my memory. But I was adamant. No, I said again, my voice firmer this time, though doubt gnawed at me. It wasn't any of them. They thanked me for my time, said they would continue their investigation. I left the station, feeling nothing, numb, relieved that it was over, that the lineup was done, but also uneasy, haunted by a sliver of doubt. What if I was wrong? What if I'd let him go? What if that man was still out there, roaming free, with that smile, that voice, that chilling promise? I hope, to this day, that I didn't make a mistake. I hope, more than anything, that I didn't let him roam free. That's where Alex's terrifying night ends, or perhaps just pauses. Can you imagine that fear, that feeling of being hunted in the dark? The chilling whisper in your ear, The smile that promised death? It's the kind of story that makes you double-check your locks and maybe invest in a really good home security system. What strikes me most about Alex's experience is the vulnerability of working alone at night. The quiet that's supposed to be peaceful turns menacing, and the ordinary interactions become twisted into something horrific. And the lingering question, the uncertainty about the lineup, it adds a layer of real-world dread. Sometimes, the monsters aren't caught, and the peace of mind is never fully restored. If you felt your pulse quicken listening to Alex's story, if you're wondering what happened next, if the police ever caught the smiling man, and how Alex coped with the aftermath, then make sure to let me know. Smash that like button if you want to hear part 2. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of this chilling tale, and tell me in the comments, what are your biggest night shift fears? Have you ever experienced anything unsettling working nights? Your likes, subs, and comments are what keep these stories coming. So, show some love, and maybe, just maybe, we'll delve deeper into the shadows of Oakhaven and find out what truly happened to Alex after that terrifying night. Thanks for watching, and sleep tight, if you can.